Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Wine, Women, and Words. And joining us tonight, as always, is Michelle.
Hello.
And also, our special guest this week is Randy Susan Meyers, author of the novel, her newest novel, because it's not her first novel, but her newest one, Wasted. So, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me because it is not often I have an excuse to put on lipstick at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, I am so glad that we were able to facilitate that for you.
Appreciate
it. Now, this novel is, for those who aren't familiar with it, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Wasted is told from the point of view of two women, Alice and Daphne, both successful women with good careers, mothers, wives, who share a secret obsession.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know each other, although they will. Both of them are obsessed with their weight to a point of really an unholy degree. And they end up making a decision to go to a mansion in Vermont where they're promised a sort of resort, a weight resort. And the only agreement they have to make to get this for free, even have their salary covered, is that they will be part of a documentary. And they think it's going to be a serious, well-meaning documentary, but it's anything but. And it's a horror show.
Gotcha. And it's I'm in the about halfway through the novel, and so it's such a realistic story because it's something that I think just about every woman can relate to because the what goes through Alice and Daphne's heads, like Alice especially for me, it's like I see similarities between myself and her where it's like I used to be really, really thin and now I'm a little more on the pudgier side. And the uncomfortableness that comes with that. And they're very realistic. They're women that you could know from down the street or your next door neighbor or your friend. What was the inspiration for you for this book?
Living. Being a woman and alive. Both Alice and Daphne hold different pieces of me because people always say, well, which one is you? And they both hold something of me. And the first line of this book, everyone hates a fat woman, but none more than she hates herself. That went through my head for years, but I had to write 4 other books before I had the guts to tackle this one. Mm-hmm. Weight was always a huge issue for me, and not because I was always fat, but I grew up in a house with a very thin mother and a very thin sister, and being normal to sometimes pudgy made me a monster to them. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of criticism. Mm-hmm. And when I look back at pictures sometimes of myself, it's like, wow, what was I upset about? Why was I so horrified by myself? And I personally have gone up and down. I've been 40 pounds heavier than I am now. But one of the things I know is that so much of it is in our head. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to write something that was about women and their obsession with their bodies, but not a sort of, oh, and then they lost weight and everything was great, or, oh, they grew to accept being heavy was wonderful, but sort of like what really goes on inside our heads. And then what happens if you're put in a situation where you really have to face how crazy you are, mm-hmm. that you're letting yourself go this far. And mm-hmm. I kind of see it almost as when we go through a crucible. Mm-hmm. So the coal will either end up coal dust or diamonds. And that was part of what I wanted to explore, a piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so all of your books kind of revolve around some kind of social issue, and Wasted, as you just explained, is about kind of that internal battle that women always, or not always, but women deal with, the outside pressure and the internal pressure that we put on ourselves. Why do you think novels are such a powerful platform to address these kind of issues for people?
Well, for one thing, novels bring out tremendous empathy in the reader. And I believe that you really can explore social issues better from a personal, from a person's eyes or a few people's eyes, and then you really are inside them and you're experiencing them. I know I grew up, as you ladies I'm sure did, being tremendous readers, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
reading was basically I lived in the library. It's everything to me. And I went on binges. I went on like a slavery reading binge, a Holocaust reading binge. And all of that reading informed me because it was novels. So it wasn't like I was like sort of going through history, which, I read a lot of nonfiction, but when you are right inside, and I like to do a really close up point of view, sort of like, how there are method actors. Sometimes I think I'm a method writer because I
I love
really
that.
live inside those characters. That was a long way to get to. I feel like novels really bring us inside in a different way. And I teach writing, and I tell people when you're writing a novel about where you're including social issues, it's not a polemic. It's viewing the problem from inside a person.
I love that take on it. Because when we're dealing with problems, when we're dealing with social issues, like if a social issue affects us personally, you don't see it from that outside perspective. You see it from how it's affecting you as that person. So that's a brilliant, wonderful piece of advice that I plan on using and utilizing as well.
Are you a writer?
Yes, I am.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, then we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
I've written a lot about this because I really feel closeness brings readers. Engaging readers means really bringing them close up. I used to work with criminals. I know. I'm so proud. No, I did. It was a great job. For 10 years, I worked with batterers, not the women, but the guys who were court ordered, right? So they just loved me. But they did. It was because I was teaching them anti-violence. At least once a group, one of the guys would say something very meaningful, more meaningful than anything I could say. And the whole rest of the group would go, and I always called it the church lady moment. It's like, all these big rough guys sitting around a group going, and I like to bring that. I like to be really honest in my writing. It brings me a variety of reactions, but I like to really kind of just take the curtain way apart.
Do you know when
moment? I'm like, I'm like one of your burly tough guys.
Do you know when you're writing, can you feel it when you've written one of those moments, or do you kind of find them when you go back and on one of your revisions?
I think both. I don't think it's one or the other, but I can feel when I'm clunking, when it's a clunker. It's like, oh, come on, that is so not honest. That's disgusting. You're a terrible writer. Throw that out. I can really feel it. And I always feel like I tell my students this and myself, if it feels wrong to you, it's wrong. Don't think that the reader's going to they'll like it. And I also have a thing in my gut when I feel like it's right. Like I've hit a piece of honesty. It's not always comfortable. Like there are some scenes I wrote in Wasted that were very uncomfortable for me. And some many, many women, God bless, have loved it. And then some women have been, wish I hadn't written it. It's a little bit polarizing, but I guess that's what happens is when you write to the bone.
That's true, yeah. And art, it doesn't always make you feel comfortable. Art shouldn't always make you feel comfortable. Art is a reflection of our society, and sometimes we have to look at those uncomfortable things.
Well, I looked at a lot of discomfort in this one, let me tell you.
That is very true.
Oh, cutie pie.
Yes, this is Lilo, our assistant podcaster.
What a sweetheart.
Yeah, I have to have her collar off when I'm podcasting because she pops up and you can hear it through the audio. So now she runs around naked while I'm podcasting.
We can take it.
Yeah, she's a flasher. So now, jumping between the two voices, that's something that some authors really struggle with. How were you able to manage jumping between Daphne and Alice?
I think I just have some luck in that it's not hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I will never do the point of view of a character where I can't get inside them. And
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten inside some villains. I've written some villainous characters from their point of view, but I always look to find everybody's the star of their own show, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have to find out what's inside them, what's their starship that makes them, what's the story they tell themselves to do even the bad things they do. Because my characters are never perfect people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm writing, whoever I'm writing from, whether it was Alice or Daphne, like I said with the method writer, I really become them.
Mm-hmm.
I do have an ability also, probably from growing up a big fat liar. I was a terrible lying child, and I got away with it all the time. I was so darn good at it. And what would happen is I grew up pretending to be a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess probably not such a normal person, but it works for writing.
It does. Writers aren't necessarily normal people. Michelle and I know this.
Yeah. But I love getting inside I love writing from different points of view. To me, it's the best way to write. So I think that's why I do it. I feel very passionate about it. If I wasn't comfortable, I would just stick to one point of view.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
And you mentioned earlier that you've written previous books before you were before you felt brave enough to write this one. And your past books have kind of dealt with, the complexities of marriage, and especially when a couple is placed in extraordinary circumstances, and then broader themes like morality and loyalty. What was it about this story that you felt you wanted to work up to?
I think that even though there were pieces of my life that colored every book that I've written. I mean, the first one, The Murderer's Daughters, is about two sisters who witnessed their father kill their mother, and it's about how did that affect their life for the next 40 years. I mean, my father tried to kill my mother. He didn't succeed. But it was a long time ago, and it kind of felt like a weird distant. I was so young. I only remember it in a very visceral kind of way. This topic, there's so much shame that women have. We're ashamed if we think we're fat. We're ashamed that we care so much. We're ashamed if we don't care. We're told to be ashamed every day by magazines, by every time we open our eyes and turn on the TV. There's subliminal messages at us every minute about how do you look, not just about weight, but how you look. And I don't think I wanted to face my own vanity, if that makes sense, because in some way, worrying so much about how you look, and one of the characters notices a makeup artist whose family owns a jewelry store. I wish I had grown up with family who owned a jewelry store. And the other woman is mixed race, and she's always trying to figure out where she fits in terms of her looks. And I don't mean vanity is a bad word, but it's a self-obsession that we don't like to expose very much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
Makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, every woman has felt a bit of shame, no matter what size they are, or what they're doing in their life, and it's the idea of being proud of how you look is, you're vain if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
If you don't.
Exactly.
I mean, I was talking to my agent the other day because we're friends along with her. She's a wonderful agent. We were joking about how I was getting ready for my launch because my book just came out this week. And I said, what to wear and blah, 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 how to wear my hair. And I said, I'm so jealous of my husband. Oh, what tie should I wear with this blue shirt or that blue shirt? And we were thinking about that, it's this whole level of thinking that goes on all the time for women.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is, it seems like it's a small thing, but it infuses us all the time. And what do we do with that level of having to manage that while also managing to be a really good person and pretend that you don't really care that much, even though you do care that much. So, ooh, it's complicated.
It is. It is very complicated. And as you said, the book just came out this week. It was on Tuesday, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So you can actually get this book everywhere books are sold. It is a fantastic book. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the great interview.
Oh, it was wonderful, and we will definitely have to have you back again.
Okay, and if you ever come to Boston, coffee at my house.
Absolutely, our pleasure. We will
Or
take you
wine.
up on
I
that.
know your wine, so okay, wine.
We still love
We
our
won't
coffee.
turn down coffee.
I know, never turn down coffee. If we can't drink wine, we will drink coffee.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.